All right, I'm gonna go ahead and right now just make a recording of yesterday's passing data lesson since it is not downloading on Zoom. So what I did was I just kind of erased what I had done yesterday, and I'm gonna go through everything that you all did together, or that we did together, as well as what you did on your own. So the very first thing that we did was create an artist index for your warm-up. So I'm going to go ahead and for this create a test, and in that I'm going to put it in my features folder, and I only have a songs folder. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder for artists, and then in there I'm going to say user can see all artists.spec.rb, and we'll go ahead and require Rails helper, and then rspec.describe. I'll say as a visitor, when I visit the artist's index page, I can see all artists. And let me actually, I'm going to pull this up, a lot up here. Let's just do this. Pull slides up from yesterday. There we go. All right, so this is what I am working with for the warm-up. It is right here. Cool. So this is the user story I'm working with for the warm-up. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste it down here so I know what I'm working with. So when I visit /artists, I see a list of all artist names. So in order to do that, I actually need some artists. So I'm going to grab this artist here, and let's make another one. So I want to make more than one because I'm testing my index page, and I want to make sure that more than one artist appears on that page. So I don't need to do anything for this as a visitor. That's fine. When I visit /artists, so we'll go ahead and we'll visit /artists. Cool. And then it says I see a list of all artist names. So I'm just going to say expect page to have content of carlyrae.name, and then same thing for Bon Jovi. Awesome. Let's go ahead and run our tests. And actually, I don't think that I got rid of, when I kind of reverted back to this version that I had, I don't think I got rid of my routes. So let me get rid of those first, just so you can see these errors pop up how they would normally. This one, and this one, and this one. Okay, so this is what y'all are starting with before this lesson. So the error that I should have gotten is a routing issue, saying that we can't get to /artists. So we'll go ahead and we'll create this. We'll say get /artists, and I want to go to the artist controller and to the index action. Next, it's going to say that I don't have an artist controller. I don't think I've created that yet. Cool. So I'm just going to copy this, and I need to go ahead and create that artist controller in my controllers folder. So we'll have artists, plural, controller.rb, and we have our class of artists controller inheriting from application controller. Okay, now we can't find that index action as I described in the routes. So we'll go ahead and create that index action here. And the next thing it's going to say is it doesn't have a view for that index. So I'll go ahead and create that view right now. So in here, I'll say index.html.erb, making sure that I put that in my artists folder. And now that should all be set up, my model of my view, my controller. Okay, cool. So we can't find this information in blank. There's nothing on the page right now. So doing a little bit of dream driving, I'm going to say just up top here, I'm going to have just a title here that says all artists. And I'm going to assume that I have something passed to this view called @artists that has a collection of all my artists. So I'm going to iterate over each of those. Each of them is an artist object. And I want to, in visible ERB tags, print out artist.name. Okay, we can't, undefined method each for nil class, meaning we can't call each on something that we haven't defined yet. So we'll have to define that in our controller, in our index action, since the variable artists, our instance variable, can get passed to our index.html.erb file. And we're going to define that as artist.all, all of our artists. Cool, and that is good to go. Next thing that we're going to take a look at is this show page for songs. So one way that we can pass data is through the URI, and that's what I want to take a look at here. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go ahead and create a test for the song show page. So in here I'm going to say user can see one song spec.rb, and we'll say down here, I'm just going to paste this, comment it out for now, and just to kind of get this set up, I'm going to copy this whole thing over into this new test and just tweak it a little bit. So Rails helper as a visitor, I can see an artist, or sorry, a song's show page, in that song's title and artist name. Okay, so let's get rid of this because I only need one song. Actually, I'll keep that in just to make sure. Maybe I can do something like this page doesn't have this song's information. I want to make sure it only has one song's information. All right, so let's look down here at this user story as a visitor. Don't need to do anything with that. When I visit /songs ID, where ID is a number for a particular song in my database. So that's going to be the first thing I do here. Song slash, I'm not going to do it like this, hard coding that ID in. I need to actually tell it the actual number ID. I don't know, just looking at this song here, what its ID is. So I'm going to interpolate song1.id. Okay, so I'm visiting that. I'll get rid of this. Then I see that song's title and artist name. So expect page to have content song1.title. Cool, I'm going to keep that. I'm also going to put here carlyrae.name. So I also want to see Carly Rae's name. I could also say something like song1.artist.name. Okay, I'll actually leave it like that. So I want to see song1's artist's name. I don't want to see to not have content song2's title. So I'll keep it like that. Yeah, and so that kind of works with this last one here, and I did not see any of the other songs in my database. I'm going to get rid of that. Let's go ahead and run our test. We don't have a route for this, so that's going to be the first thing we'll need to do. Okay, let's go ahead and create that route for our get songs ID. So in our routes, up here, we'll say get songs :ID. The only place you're going to use these placeholders are in the route file. And we want it to go to songs show. I already have a songs controller, so I'm going to have to go ahead and create a show action in my songs controller. So I'll go ahead and say def show. I think this was here from your HTML lesson. But we have our index, we have our show. I'm just going to move this down here. Oops. Okay. And I'm also going to need, since it's a GET request, I'm going to need a view associated with this show from my songs controller. So in my views, in my songs folder, I'll go ahead and put a show.html.erb to kind of wrap up that model, that view, and the controller. Let's go ahead and run our tests. Okay, we have expected page to have content song 1 title, but there is nothing on that page. So we're really expecting to see this I really like you in blank. So we need to actually go ahead and print things out to this view. I'm going to assume that from my songs controller in here, actually I can go ahead and do this right now. Let's pry into here and just see what we have access to. Okay, if I look in params, I have access to the controller, like seeing what controller this is in, what action I had to take to get to where I am right now. And I also have this ID of 464. This ID came in through our route, our URI. Something you'll notice, so we called it, if I look at our routes, we called it ID here. If I called this like song underscore ID, and I come back here, let's run this again. Now if I look at params, you'll notice that instead of ID, it's called song underscore ID. So you as a developer are responsible, or it's up to you to define how these params are going to come in. For the most part, if it's just coming after one resource, like we don't have something that says like artist ID / songs ID / whatever ID, it's totally fine to just name it ID. You'll notice, especially in this nested resource lesson that you have this week, that it will become more beneficial to actually name these a little bit more semantic and to describe what ID it actually is. But for right now, there's really no question to me that if a number came in, that it's related to this song. So I'm going to just call it ID. And that being said, let's kind of get out of here and run it one more time, just so we have access to it with the key of ID. So our params come in as, did I not save that? I didn't. There we go. Our params come in as ID, and I want to be able to send off a song object to the view. So I need to actually find that song object, and I can do that by finding it by the ID. So I could say something like song.find 476, and I get back that song. You'll notice I can also, it comes back to us as a string up here. So even if I tried to find it as the string, it gets translated into an integer and it's able to find it just fine. So if I want to access this, like I don't want to hard code this 476 into my controller action, my show action, what I can do instead is in order to access that 476, I can say params, because params act like a hash, :ID, and it gives me back that 476. You'll notice that ID is also a string, so I could say, or sorry, that key is a string. I could say it like this, and it gives me back the same thing. I'm going to use symbols because, as you know from Mod 1, they're a little bit quicker to process, so I'm going to use that instead. So we can go ahead and just say song.find params ID, and we get back that song just fine. So I'm going to copy this, put it into my songs controller action right here. And I need to save it into a variable of song. I mean, this could be whatever you wanted it to be, but I think that that describes what I am passing off to the view. So then in my view for songs, now I have access to this at song. And I can go ahead and I can say, maybe I put this just as like the header on this page. And I have at song.title. And then I also, we'll just wrap it in like a p tag, say at song.artist.name. I want to print that out to the page as well. Let's go ahead and run this. And that is all passing. There we go. Let's do the same thing. We want to do it with an artist show page. So I'm going to copy this whole thing and make a test. So in features for artists, we'll go ahead and say user can see one artist spec.rb. And I'm going to paste this, just comment this out for right now. And I'm going to copy this test that I had from here, from my user can see one song. I'm going to put it into this one and just kind of alter it a little bit. I think it's going to be similar. So as a visitor, I can see, what does it say down here? When I visit an artist show page, I see that artist name, and I don't see any other artists in my database. So I'm just going to say up here, I can see a single artist's show page, including just their name. All right, so I don't necessarily need song information. I think what I'll do, similar to before, is I'll create another artist to make sure that only one artist is appearing on the page. Okay, so I have my setup done. I don't need to do anything for this as a visitor. So when I visit an artist show page, artist/ID, where ID is a number for a particular artist in my database. So let's do that first. Artist slash, again, not hard coding this in. I only put that placeholder in my routes file. But I want this to be, let's say we go to Carly Rae, carlyrae.id. Okay, so that part's done. Going to an artist show page. I see that artist name, so I'm going to say expect page to have content carlyrae.name. And I'm going to say I'm going to expect it to not have content of Bon Jovi.name. Cool. Let's go ahead and run this. And we're getting this no route error for our artist show page. So we'll go ahead and in our routes, we'll go ahead and create a get for artist/:ID for a placeholder of that artist ID. And we're going to have it go to the artist's show page. We're going to need an artist's controller. We already do because we have our artist index up here. So it looks like we're just going to have to create the show action in our artist controller. And once we create that show action in our artist controller, it's going to say that we need to have a view. So in our artist's view folder, we'll go ahead and create a show.html.erb. And in here, assuming I have something like @artist sent from my controller, I want to I just want to display that artist name. So I'm going to put that just as my header up here. Maybe eventually I want more information on this page, but for right now, I just want it to display the artist name. We need to define this @artist though, and so it's going to get defined in our artist's controller. So it's going to get defined right here and say artist is equal to, before I do that, let's go ahead and put a prime here just to make sure we know how to find a single artist. And let's see what it comes in through our params. Okay, over here it's kind of hard to see, but we have this ID come in. And that ID came in because that's how we named it in our routes. So I can just say something like artist.find params ID, just like I did for the songs before. And I get back that artist. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and put it into my show action. Again, we need to pass this off to the view with a variable. So I'm going to save it into that variable artist because that's what I'm expecting it to be in my view for that artist show page. Let's run this. And that's all working. Cool. Next thing that we're going to take a look at is creating a resource. So this new artist form. The second way that we can get information passed in Rails is through a form. And so we think about forms when we're creating a new resource, or maybe if we're updating something, maybe if we're searching for something. So in our case right now, we're going to talk about it in terms of actually creating a new resource. So I'm going to create a test for user can create an artist spec. And in here, we'll go ahead and say, let's actually go ahead and paste this. Let's comment all this out. And we'll say require Rails helper rspec.describe as a visitor. And I'm just going to do one if block here. I can create a new artist. So let's go through these steps. As a visitor, don't need to do anything for that. When I visit the artists index page, so we'll go ahead and visit /artists, good, and click on new artist. So we'll go ahead and click on new artist. I'm going to make this a little bit more specific and just assume that I'm going to make this a link. I want to make that a link. So click link, new artist. Good. Then my current path is artists new. So we'll go ahead and check that path, expect current path to equal artists new. Good. And I fill in that artist's name. So we'll go ahead and have to use a capybara method for this to interact with our page. So we'll say fill in, I'm going to say colon name here because that's how I'm going to name my text field, with that colon name. Fill in colon name with, and we'll go ahead and put Mike down here. Cool. And then I click create artists. So we'll go ahead and say click. With a form, it's automatically going to be a button. So I'm just going to say click button here instead of click on, just to be more specific. Create artist. And then that part is done. And now we have to do, and I'm redirected to this new artist show page. So I'll say expect page, or let's say expect current path dot to equal. So for the show page, we don't necessarily know. We want it to say something like artists / whatever the ID is. To find the ID, I'm going to say that the new artist that we just created is whatever the last one is in the database. So that over here, I can say new artist dot ID. I don't think this is enough of a test though to make sure that it got created correctly. So I'm also going to check, I'm going to say like expect new artist dot name to equal Mike Dow. And then since I already know what my artist show page looks like, I know it's going to display the artist name. I'm also going to say expect that the page has content Mike Dow as well. Notice here I'm not saying new artist.name. I want to hard code it in just to make sure that it got created correctly. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to get rid of that, and then let's run this. Okay, unable to find like new artist. This needs to show up if I look at my test. I want this to be on the artist index page. So on our artist index page, I'm going to go ahead and create a link to, using my action view helper, new artist. And that link is going to go to /artists/new, that new route. I need to create this route though. So let's take a look. That should be the next thing. It should find the link but not be able to get to that route. Yeah, so we're getting this issue of like, couldn't find artist with ID new. This is an interesting failure to have. What's happening is since we're trying to go to artist/new, over in our routes file, it gets stuck here. And it's like, oh, this matches because you sent in artist/something. So in this case, order does matter within your routes. And I need to define this route of going to a new, like a form for an artist to create one above this one here, or else it's going to get stuck on this and say, oh, artist/new matches this. Let's go to the artist show page. So this needs to go above this one. So we're going to send this over to artists new to render a form. Let's go ahead and run this. Cool. And now we have the action new cannot be found for artist controller. So we'll go ahead and in our artist controller, make that method of def new. This is going to look for a view right away. So we're going to go ahead and create that view right now, new.html.erb in my artist folder. And let's run that. And if all the MVC is working correctly, we should get something saying that the field is disabled. Yep. So unable to find field name, that's not disabled, meaning we haven't actually created this form yet. We're trying to fill in something, but we can't find it. So we'll have to go ahead and create this. And I'm going to create this form with a form tag. I'm going to put a little title up here and just say new artist form. And we're going to use a form tag. Syntax for form tag, we do have to have these visible ERB tags. And the first part of the form tag is going to be where we want this to get posted to, or where we want all the information from our form to go to. I want this to go to a create action in my artist controller because I want it to take any information that I put in this form to the create action to be able to actually create an artist. So for that, I'm going to have it send a post request to /artists. The only information I need to create an artist is going to be whatever I put in this form here, that name. I don't need anything else to come through with this URI. So I'm just going to leave it like that. And then we need to put this do on the end and then actually end the form. In here is where I'm going to use a text field tag. And this is me kind of like naming or giving like an ID to this field. And if you notice before in my test, I'm saying fill in name. So the value or the text field name I'm going to use for this is going to be :name. So in my new.html, I'm going to say text field tag is name. And if I wanted like a label to appear before that actual field so that users knew what they needed to put in, I can also do a label tag and say label tag also name. So it's going to take this and it's just going to capitalize it, and the word name is going to appear before the actual field for name. We can actually see this. Let's run our server and open this up. Cool. Let's go ahead and do this localhost artist/new. And there we go. You can see this label came up before the actual field. So that's what the label tag did. This is what the text field tag did. It gave you something where you can actually put text in. All right, let's go ahead and close our server. And let's run our tests. So now we have a field, so it should get past that issue. And now we have this, we don't have like a submit button. We can actually create, using an ActionView helper, we can use a submit tag for this create artist button. So in here, within our form, I'm going to put a submit tag. And if you don't put anything after this, where my cursor is right now, it's going to automatically call this submit tag submit. If you put a string after it, it'll override the default of submit, and I want it to be called create artist, so that's what I'm going to put there. Let's go ahead and run this. And we have no route matches post artists. So this issue is coming up because we're trying to, after we click on create artist, it's taking all of this information that we put in here and it's going to a post to /artist, but we don't have that route set up yet. So we need to go ahead and create a post to /artists, and we're going to have that go to artists create. Cool. Let's run that. Now we need the create action. So in here, we'll go ahead and do a create. And let's go ahead and put a pry in here and just see what we have. Okay, let's look at our params. Cool. You can see that we have this, a lot of stuff in here that we don't really need. The only thing we need to create our artist is this Mike Dow, that name there. So what I'm going to do for this, let's actually, if we said something like, let's try this out, artist.create name params name, since that's all we need to create an artist. That artist is then created. So I want this. So I'm going to put this in here for my create action. And then let's go ahead and see, I know I need to redirect, but let's run our tests and remind ourselves where we need to go to. So we're expecting to go to that artist show page once we're done, but we're still on this like /artists post route. So we need to go ahead and redirect it to that show page. So we'll say redirect to artists, and I need an ID here. So let's go ahead and save this into, I'm going to save it into a variable called new artist. And then over here, I'm going to interpolate new artist.id. And that's all good to go. One thing I want to talk about is this idea of using strong params. What you'll see a lot of is anytime you have like a helper method that you use within your controller, you'll put it under this private method. Reason being is that the methods that go underneath this private word here is going to be only accessible by this CRUD functionality within this artist controller. For us, like let's say our artists also had something like age, and then we'd have to say like params age, and then maybe it had something for hometown, params, hometown, and this is just starting to get pretty big. And if you remember back to this, when we looked at our params, it comes with a lot of stuff that we really don't need. So I would like to filter this out and just use a method to be able to pull out the variables that I need, or the key value pairs that I actually need. So I'm going to say let's create something, and I know it's kind of silly now because we just have one attribute for this artist, but to be able to put this in like a method where we can kind of abstract that out or pull that out and just send it off to any of our actions that actually need those to be able to create or update possibly a resource. I think that'd be useful. So I'm going to go ahead and call this artist params, and down here create a method called artist params. And to do this, let's put a pry in here and see how we can pull those out. Okay, so our params at this point, we have all of those. If we say params.permit and we tell it name, it gives us back just a hash with name in it. If for some reason I wanted more than one, like maybe I wanted commit, that one to come back, it would also give me that one as well. I don't need that though. I just want this one here, the name. So I'm going to copy this and put it in my strong params. That way I can make sure I have only the key value pairs that I need right here. And I can just call in that method to give me the values that I need. So let's try it using this. And that is all good to go. The next thing that we did is deleting a resource. So destroying an artist. So in order to destroy an artist, if we were to click a button to destroy an artist, when we get to our controller action, we need to know what artist we're actually destroying. So we're going to have to pass information to our controller by way of either a form or by way of something in our URI. So let's go ahead and let's create a test for this. So we'll say, oops, get rid of that. User can delete an artist. We'll go ahead and paste this in here, comment it out. And we'll have require Rails helper. Cool. Okay, as a visitor, we don't need to do anything with that. When I visit an artist show page, so let's actually go get an artist again. Let's find one somewhere else. Carly Ray, just the popular one today and every day. Carly Ray, cool. So when I visit an artist show page, we'll go ahead and visit artist slash, actually need to interpolate, so we'll use double quotes, artist slash Carly Ray.id to get to our show page. That one's done. And click a button delete. So I'll say click button delete. Good. I'm redirected back to the artist show page. So we'll say expect current path to equal artists. Yeah, the artist index page. That's what I meant. Back to the artist index page. Good. And I no longer see that artist. So we're going to say expect page to not have content of Carly Ray. And just to make sure that it didn't delete everything, I'm going to create Bon Jovi up here again. And just make sure that when I return to that artist page that Bon Jovi is still there. So let's say expect page to have content. And I'll go ahead and just do this way, bonjovi.name. Okay, so it only deleted Carly Ray, but it didn't delete Bon Jovi. Let's run it. Okay, unable to find button delete, that's not disabled, so we need to go ahead and make that delete button on our artist show page. So let's go ahead and make a button to delete. And we want this to go to our artists. We need to pass it the artist ID in order for our controller to know what artist they're trying to delete. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and interpolate at artist.id. And a button to is automatically going to go to a post verb. So I want to specify here that the method is going to be a delete when it's looking for this route. It's going to go to delete artist/id, not a post artist/id. So I need to specify that here, since the default of button to is to go to a post, just like the default of link to is to go to a get. All right, so let's run this. Okay, we don't have the route for deleting, so we'll go ahead and create the route. And I want this to be a delete artist's ID, and I want it to go to artists. The action for delete is going to be destroy. I'll have to create that action in my artist controller. And let's go ahead and put a pry in here. This does not need a view because it's not a get request. So we're going to have to redirect after we actually destroy the artist, but let's go ahead and put a pry in there just to see what we have once we get there. And if we look at params, we have this ID. So we'll have to destroy by using that ID. So what we can do is we can say artist.destroy and then give it the actual ID, params :ID. And then that will get, it returns us that artist, but now if we look at artist.all, I guess we've made a lot of these in our test. This might not be the best example. But yeah, it will destroy that params, that artist from our table if we pass it that artist's ID. So let's just take this. It's a little tricky to see that in this pry session right now. But in here, I'm going to go ahead and say destroy that artist with that ID that came in. And let's go ahead and run this. I don't know. Okay. Let's go ahead and run rspec. And we're still on this. We got artist/ID. This is still stuck on our delete route that we were on. We need to redirect it to the artist index page. So back here, I'll say redirect to artists. And now let's run it. And to not have content, Carly Rae. In all artists, Carly Rae, living on a prayer. I don't know if my teardown's happening. Let's see what's going on. So line 13 in my artists. User can delete an artist. Let's go through this again. So if I visit Carly Rae's and I click delete, then my current path should be /artist. I should not have Carly Rae, but I should still have Bon Jovi's name. My artist controller, artist.destroy, params ID, redirect to /artists. Let's try this again. I'm just gonna redo my database. It's an alias I have. Oh, this one. Okay. try this. Okay, that's working. I got a little issue with my teardown and my testing, but that seems like that all worked just fine. Last thing that I want to do with y'all is look at editing, which is very similar to creating, in that our form is going to be similar, but it's just going to have a different action that it goes to. So this is a little reminder up here. Form tags automatically send post requests, so we got to be aware of that when we're actually creating this form for updating an artist. So in here, I'm going to go ahead. I think I copied that. Did I? Copy. And we'll go ahead and create an artist spec where a user can edit an artist. Spec.rb. Paste that in there. Comment it out. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my test from creating an artist. It's going to be it's pretty similar, and put that in here. Okay. So as a visitor, I can edit, I'm going to say, an existing artist. So we'll visit, let's go through this. As a visitor, cool. When I visit an artist show page, so this is what I need to change about this. Let's go ahead and grab an artist. We'll get Carly Rae. Since I need to visit an artist show page. Cool. And click edit. So we'll make it a link again. Click edit. Then I'm taken to an edit artists form. So I'm going to expect the current path to equal artist slash that artist's ID, carlyrae.id, and then slash edit is going to be the name of that form, or the route for that form, because I want this artist to be edited, and I want my form to know which artist it's actually editing. So get rid of that. When I enter a new name for the artist, so we're going to fill in name with, put my name in here, Meg Stang, cool. And I click a button to update artist. Good. Then I'm redirected back to the artist show page. So I don't need this anymore because I already know that artist's ID. So expect current path to equal artist slash carlyrae.id. So we're getting back to that show page. And I see the updated name. So expect, I'm going to say here, page to have content Meg Stang, and I want it to not have content Mike Dow anymore. Okay, let's run this. Unable to find link edit, and that needs to be on the show page. So we'll go ahead and go to the songs show and say link to edit, and it's going to go to /artists/ at artist.id/edit. And this is going to go to a get to get that view, so I don't need to specify anything here. Let's go ahead and create that route though. So get artist's ID edit to artist's edit action. The action edit could not be found, so we'll go ahead and create that edit action in our artist controller, which is going to render a view. So we'll go ahead and create that artists edit.html.erb view. And in here, I'm going to want something like, actually, let's go ahead and let's run this and see what happens. Okay, unable to find field name, that's not disabled. So let's go ahead. This form's going to be super similar to our new one that we had here. I'm going to copy this over and kind of tweak it a little bit. So where do I want this to get posted to, or sorry, patched to in this case, because I want to update this resource. Let's actually change this first. Edit artist form. I want this to go to, so in order to actually edit an artist, I need to know which artist I'm editing. So I'm going to have to pass it an artist's ID. When I do this patch, and again, form tag is automatically going to go to a post verb. So we need to go ahead and specify the method here is going to be a patch. So I want this to go to a patch artist's ID so that I know which artist I'm trying to update. And everything else is going to be the same other than this right here. I want this to say update artist. All right, let's go ahead and run this. No method ID for this app artist. So this has to be defined in our edit action. And we have this coming in the ID of that artist through our URI. The params is ID, the key is ID. So we'll go ahead and just say artist.find params ID. And we have no route matches patch for an artist's ID, so we'll have to go and create that route. Patch artist's ID. It's going to go to artist's update. So we'll go ahead and we'll make that update action in our artist controller. And let's go ahead and put a pry in here just to see what we have. Let's look at our params. And we have a lot of stuff in here. The only thing that I really want, I want this to know what I'm updating it to be. I also need this down here to be able to find the artist I want to update. So let's go ahead and let's say, I don't need to have any instance variables in here in this case because I'm not setting this off to a view. I'm just updating a resource. So I'll go ahead and say artist is artist.find by params ID so I know which artist it is that I'm trying to update. And then I can go ahead and say artist.update. And I can use this artist params down here. So it's going to pull out that name attribute that I'm trying to update, and it's going to update this artist object with that parameter that came in. Let's go ahead and run our tests. And this is a funny error that like I've seen a lot, so I kind of know what it's saying, but it's hard to see exactly what it's talking about. When I see this, it indicates to me that I haven't redirected where I need to. Essentially what's happening is the paths are the same because I'm coming from a delete path, which is /artist/id, but a delete verb. And I want to go to /artist/id, but with a get verb to be able to see that show page. So just from practice, I know that this tells me that I haven't redirected and there's like really no visible difference between the actual URIs other than the verb. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and redirect to /artist/ and I can just use this variable that I have up here, artist.id, to be able to redirect to the show page. And that is all done. So we got through all of that CRUD functionality. That was like a quick run through of the lesson. Feel free to reach out to any of the instructors if you have questions about any of this. This code is all pushed up to setlist, so you're welcome to take a look at that at any point. All right, that's all.